Greetings, sunshines and sunnies. It is I, Queen Scarlet Pimp Sunkiss, coming at y'all right quick, right fast, maybe, with a Real Housewives of Atlanta read. Now, this is gonna be a tea party read, okay? Literally the tea party that Kenya threw, okay? So I decided to do some things a little differently than what I originally planned. I'm still going to do the cast read, but I am kicking it off with this particular read. And the tea in question here is, who wrote the rumor about the fellatio in the locker room about Candy? So, what I have here are 5 cards, and each of the cards represent one of the 5 housewives that could have potentially wrote the note, the tea party notes. So, what I asked the Divine Realm is to show me each of the gals individually. So, show me Marlo, show me Sonya, show me Sheree, show me Drew, show me Kenya. And for Marlo, we have the Ace of Pentacles, no surprise there. The High Priestess for Sonya, the Wheel of Fortune for Sheree, Queen of Pentacles, Miss Drew, and the Justice card for Kenya Moore. All right, child. I took all of these cards, stuck them in a deck, shuffled them up in a deck separately from the one that they originally come from. Shook them up and said, show me the housewife that wrote the rumor. This will be reiterated in the video clip that is about to pop up. So stay tuned and see what we got cooking here. All right, so how I am going to get the Divine Realm's answer to this question: who wrote the nasty rumor about Candy at the tea party concerning her giving fellatio, going ham for that fam in a locker room? Who wrote that, okay? How I am going to get the Divine Realm's answer using those cards from the intro that represent Marlo, Sheree, Drew, Sonya, and Kenya. I have taken those cards and placed them randomly throughout another deck of cards. And I am asking specifically, who wrote the rumor? Which housewife, okay, cast member, wrote the nasty rumor about Candy giving fellatio, going ham for that fam in the locker room? Show me the housewife that wrote the rumor about Candy. Show me the housewife that wrote the rumor about Candy. Who is this? Ooh. Art? Show me the housewife that started the rumor. Show me the housewife that started the rumor. All right, child, let's get into what's to be said about this outcome. So, outside of these 3 cards, there will be a lot to fill in, and there will be a lot that I make separate videos for, okay? But let's just get into it. So, here we have, of course, Sonya, the one who is revealed to have written the scandalous tea party notes about Candy. Sheree is the one whose mouth it came out of first concerning the group of ladies. And Drew's card just so happened to have popped out. Now, let me get into what I'm getting from this trio. So, all right, there's a lot more than what meets the eye with this trio. Sonya has the High Priestess card because she is naturally very intuitive, very calculated, very strategical. Howsoever, when this card first came out for her, when I pulled Show Me Sonya, the card was in reverse. And the reason being is because a more evolved, spiritually evolved version of Sonya is highly intuitive, okay? She's naturally intuitive. Howsoever, there are some things that have transpired in her life that have made her very easily influenced. And one of those things I'm picking up on is her mother. And her mother also has shown up in this reading, but I will touch on that more so going forth in this video, and more of that will probably come out in Sanya's individual reading video that I will do. Okay, so I turned the card right side up because I didn't want that type of energy in the reading. So that's why it's right side up here. But it originally came out upside down. So keep in mind with me saying that Sonya is somewhat easily influenced. Another natural reason for this is because Sanya is an athlete. A lot of the time, she has been trained to be in her head. So most of the time, she is in her head about things as opposed to being balanced with heart and mind, or being in her heart or in her spirit about things. So sometimes her mind can warp spiritual messages that come through. And also, consequently, with all of that being said, she often feels tugged and pulled between two different worlds: the earthly and the spiritual, the artistic and the practical or athletic, if you will. And more of that will be expanded upon or expounded upon in her individual reading. But let's get to Sheree and why and how she's showing up, as she's showing up here. She's showing up as the Wheel of Fortune, okay? But Sheree also has a different identity that will be touched on and shows up throughout the duration of this video. So hold that thought. She's showing up as the Wheel of Fortune here. And she is also a card that originally came out in reverse, which has tones of envy, has tones of chaos, disorder, inner turmoil, and looking at the world through a warped view, being ungrounded, being I'm hearing Lost in Paradise by Rihanna. And also the term saucy just came up as I said that. And if you notice that their card in this particular Mystic Monday deck, this Mystic Monday tarot deck that these cards came out of, the Wheel of Fortune card is orange. It's predominantly orange. There are hints of red and purple and things throughout there, but it's predominantly orange. And what I'm getting from that concerning Sheree is she is often allegedly, but this is what the cards and the divine realm is giving to me. Sheree is often not sober one way or another. Now, either she is often not sober a lot of the time, and or she is often not sober when she starts to run off at the mouth and say these types of things, such as Candy giving fellatio in a locker room. And often when those shadow traits and negative traits come out of her, most of the time when that happens, she is not sober. So I'm not saying that Sheree is a alcoholic or drug addict or anything. It's a possibility that there may be an imbalance there, allegedly, just based off the cards and what the divine realm is given to me. But in general, when Sheree gets intoxicated in any way, shape, or form, a whole lot starts to bubble to the surface and comes out. And that most of the time is her dark side. Okay? And so then, therefore, people that she doesn't like, she starts to say how she really feels in a very raw and uncut manner. Or people that, she may be envious of or jealous of, it starts to come out in very nasty ways. And that's what it's given that has happened here. And I'm also picking up on something, whereas Sheree is trying to figure out how the tables turned, how Candy ended up at the top of the wheel and Sheree feels like she's at the bottom. That is something off of Sheree's perspective there. Okay, so Drew's card showing up here. Now, so far, all I have gotten off of this, I even pulled some extra cards concerning your girl. Okay, just to see why her card popped out in this. And all I'm picking up on concerning this, and this is why I said keep in mind that Sanya has a tendency to be a bit easily influenced, because what's coming up here for Drew, the reason why she's showing up is because Drew is the one who brought Sanya into the fold. And in the midst of bringing Sanya into the fold, she put Sanya on game to some things. And in Drew's mind, she was simply telling her experience of the ladies and just, trying to warm her up for the type of situation that she could be entering. Howsoever, words make minds, and like I said, Sanya is very mindful. And some of the other ladies are very mindful as well. And there are certain things that Drew says that the ladies, certain ladies, take, and their mind warps it and runs with it. Okay? Keep that in mind. And I'm not saying that the ladies intentionally misinterpret or run with the things that Drew says and does. And I'm not saying that they are totally wrong in their perspective either. It's just that, like I said, words make mine. And Drew talks too much. That's what's coming up. That's what has come up also in the cards that I pulled for her individually. Drew talks a lot. She just runs off at the mouth a lot. And people's, with their own experiences in their own mind, they take that, how they take it, and then they act on it, how they choose to act on it. So keep that in mind, and we're going to move on to the next set of cards for the next question concerning this same topic. Because, boy, like I said, there's a lot more than what meets the eye here. Before I head out on this particular layout, there's one thing I want to take a moment to fill in the blanks of concerning Drew and Sonya's relationship and Sonya's introduction into the group. Now, in a separate video, this will definitely be touched on more than likely in their individual videos. But anywho, so Sonya and Drew's relationship, as it came out in other cards that I pulled, trying to figure out why Drew was showing up in this particular part. Drew and Sonya's relationship before the show, they were more of associates. They would call each other friends, but it seems they were really more of associates. They would see each other more through social settings, different events and stuff, and or when they needed each other or when one needed the other. I.e., think about when Sanya called Drew to come get her when she had the accident, that type shit. Also, there's a thing of Drew not wanting to feel like a sixth wheel, if you will. There's a thing of, let's say Drew goes to an event and she knows everybody there don't like her. So she brings Sonya to have an ally, or, just to have somebody that she gets along with or that she knows, or she's going somewhere where she doesn't know anybody and she'll invite Sonya so that she has somebody that she knows. And vice versa. They both function with each other like that. And so, in this particular situation, with Sanya being brought into the group, it was kind of the same way. And I'm also seeing that there is a particular event that happened before filming, or it's either one to two, maybe even three, but at least two events that were like full events, and there's a third event that was more like maybe a brunch or something small, if you will, that happened before filming. And Drew was bringing her into the fold to have an ally because she wasn't sure where she would be standing with the other ladies coming in for season two. And, she wasn't sure who I was going to be friends, who I wasn't going to be friends, who I was going to like her from jump, who was going to play her does, this, that, and the third. Okay? So she was bringing in Sonya as kind of like a mutual benefit to both of them. Drew needing an ally and Sonya needing another stream of income. So they felt like they were killing two birds with one stone, but things didn't go exactly as planned because when Sanya gets into the fold, people really are drawn to her energy, and they're really drawn to like how she looks, how she talks, the way she comes off, her background and everything. Like in general, it seems like Sanya has an energy that people are really intrigued by just in regular life, let alone bringing her into this group of women. And it seems as though some of the ladies, or at least two of the ladies, saw an opportunity to infiltrate not only Sonya, but to infiltrate the relationship between Drew and Sonya. Okay? Hold that thought because more dots will be connected as we go through this video. So what we're covering in this layout is why. Why did Sonya write that note, okay? Why did she decide that that is what she is going to write on the note at the tea party? So, throughout pulling cards for Sonya on this situation and everything, I was picking up on a very nervous, anxiety-filled energy. And needless to say, Sonya seems to struggle with anxiety. And that plays a major role in kind of why her High Priestess card originally came out reversed. I want to also point something out here too. I also went back and watched certain episodes and scenes and everything just to look at Sonya and watch Sonya, her body language, how she responds to things, mostly how she responds in a non-verbal type of way. And I noticed that her nonverbals show more than her verbals do. So keep that in mind. Also, what we have here is Sonya was peer pressured into writing that on the note at the tea party. And what I'm picking up on is she was pressured specifically to write it at the tea party. Okay, now there are a lot of things that kind of go into this because, like I said, there are some events that happened prior to filming that also play into the tea party and also play into the dissension between Drew and Sonya in particular. Now, before we get into the specific scenario that has been given to me through divine messaging and this card, let me talk about the cards that are present. And let me also bring attention to the fact that Marlo and Sonya show up the same way in the traditional Rider-Waite tarot as they did in the Mystic Monday tarot. Whereas we have Sanya as the High Priestess and we have Marlo as the Ace of Pentacles. Now, who is this King of Pentacles over here? I had to do some spiritual evaluation and things, and also a little bit of research to discover for myself who that King of Pentacles is, because I was originally kind of sort of thinking that it was a male, but I was also in my intuition like, nah, I don't feel a biologically masculine energy off of that card. Well, that card is that other identity that I mentioned of Sheree. That is Sheree Whitfield, the King of Pentacles. Why does she show up as the King of Pentacles? Because one, she's a Capricorn, but she shows up as the King of Pentacles as opposed to the Queen of Pentacles because she mostly identifies and functions in her masculine energy. And at the particular time spans where she was in her, let's say, quote unquote, bone carrying mode of facilitating, pulling strings and infiltrating relationships and doing all the things as it does, and this particular situation of peer pressuring Sonya to write what she wrote and also putting certain bugs and batteries in her ear and in her back, not just Sonya, but those particular acts. Both Marlo and Sheree were and are functioning, thinking about money and how these types of things can benefit them on a monetary, materialistic, and imagery type of stance. So they're not thinking about necessarily, they're not thinking about the casualties of war, okay? Because there are certain individuals that they kind of want to hurt and want to knock off their pedestal in the midst of doing the little shiesty things that they do and have done. But then also in the midst of that, they don't consider the innocent people that they end up bringing into this shit, or that they end up hurting as a result. So I'm going to speak specifically on the tea party because that's what this layout is specifically speaking to. There is another layout that speaks to a prior situation, so hold that thought. In this particular layout, what we have is at the tea party. In episode 3, we see Kenya go around before they get to the table, before the kids are separated to the kids table and then the adults at the adult table. Kenya walks around and she hands out note cards for people to write their tea on, okay? So they didn't show us each individual housewife writing down the tea and putting it into the box, right? So what this layout is doing is filling in the blanks of that. And what this layout is giving me, my intuition, the divine realm and all of that, is showing me is that Sanya did not know what to write on the card because she really didn't know for a fact anything about the other ladies. There are some things that she could have written about Drew, but as a friend, she didn't want to betray Drew in that way and write anything about her. And so she didn't know what else to write because she also didn't want to write something that was just hearsay. Like, she really didn't want to offend anybody or come off the wrong way, but she also, you know, wanted to be participative and earn her check. So Marlo and Sheree are kind of like sharks in the ocean at this moment. Either they visibly saw Sanya looking confused or, you know, kind of lost on what to write, not knowing what to do, or Sonya literally kind of voiced it out loud, not really talking to anybody specifically, but said out loud, I don't know what to write, I don't know what to put. And I can't necessarily tell. It seems like it's Marlo. I can't tell exactly who went to her first, but there is some unseeming manipulative shit that happened in the midst of that. Whereas they are putting things in her head like, well, girl, you gotta write something, you gotta do something, you gotta earn that check. Just write something you done heard in the byways through passing and all of that, you know. Kind of indirectly pressuring her to just put anything, okay? And somebody says, I can't tell if it's Marlo or Sheree. It's not giving me that specifically, but it seems like it's Marlo, and Sheree more so kind of co-signed it in a way so that her hands wouldn't be dirty. And so look at the position of the cards also, right? We see Marlo in the middle right there is the Ace of Pentacles. And look at the imagery of the Ace of Pentacles. It is turned in the direction of Sanya's card. And the hand is holding a coin. And that is confirming to me that Marlo is the one that more so directly carried the bone. She took what Sheree said, what she know of Sheree saying, and she handed it to Sanya for to say. And you have Sheree in the background amening and encouraging it. And it's like, not specifically this, but symbolically this. Sheree holding up a sign like, yeah, that. Yeah, you're doing a good job. Yeah, keep up the good work. Yeah, do that, do that. And one of them, more than likely Marlo, literally just spits out, was just write anything. Write something about Candy. She ain't gonna do nothing. Folks think she a hoe anyway. Just write she sucked dick in the locker room. Ain't that something? Did somebody say that? Just write she sucked dick in the locker room. It'll make good TV anyway. It'll make a good scene anyway. And there is resistance from Sanya in this situation, both verbally and internally. And also, if you pay attention to the imagery of the High Priestess card, both in this deck and also in the Mystic Monday deck, there is this woman, the High Priestess, in between what looks like two different worlds or two different choices. On the Mystic Monday deck, the woman is holding two different shapes. While that symbolizes duality, for Sonya, from Sonya's perspective and experience, it symbolizes a tug of war of her. And that's literally what's happening in this moment. She doesn't know which way to go. She doesn't know exactly who to listen to. And her intuition is being overwhelmed by both Marlo and some internal forces from just her own personal experience and being as a person. And so she doesn't want to ruffle any feathers, but at the same time, she wants to earn her check. Time is boiling down. And also, if you go back and look at that episode, or if you remember from that episode, Kenya was in charge of the girls. She was conducting a show, if you will. There are quite a few moments where Kenya is saying, okay, well, we've ran out of time for that. Let's move to the next thing. Okay, we got to wrap this up because y'all were late. Let's move to the next thing. And that's a lot of what was going on at the time. Sanya was giving resistance, but at the same time, she felt pressured both from Marlo and Sheree, pressure from her own internal forces, and pressure from the time restraints and the filming of it all. And like I said, Kenya going around like, okay, we got to move on to this. Okay, it's enough time for that because people were late. Da 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 da. So she hurried up and wrote something on the card, which was what she was given because she didn't know what else to do. So that was the easiest and most convenient thing for Sanya to write. And it seems like she also felt like, because remember me saying, somebody said, oh, you know, just write it. Candy not gonna have no reaction to it, no way. Candy not gonna do nothing, no way. She won't be offended, no way. She the freak of the week. That's like what it was given. So out of convenience, Sanya latched on to that aspect of it, genuinely thinking that, you know, it wouldn't be that bad. It could be, you know, something made humorous. But Candy actually did get offended. And if you go back and watch that scene, when Candy started asking who said this, and there's certain people like, who said that, da 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 da. If you look at when they pan, it's a couple of times that they pan to Sanya. And if you look at the look on her face, she looks like she looks like the person that farted in the crowd, but is trying to act like it wasn't her. And she also kind of remains very low-key, doesn't say much, kind of fades into the background for the rest of the episode. Conveniently so that the attention wouldn't be brought to her, so that she wouldn't have to answer for who said that, okay? Because Candy was not about to let it go concerning who wrote this, who said that, where you get it from, what had happened was. So, real talk, if you go back, because I went back just for my own, you know, satisfaction and peace of mind or whatever, to see, like, you know, her nonverbals. Because, like I said, her nonverbals say a lot more than her actual verbals. And if you go back and look at that scene, and just for the remainder of that episode, from that moment, Sanya's vibe changed from the time that that card was read to the end of the episode. And that also marks where she started acting differently, okay? So just keep all of that in mind. I also want to make clear that why Sanya has a rather messed up way of handling things, one that can be called cowardly, because she should have just said, I genuinely didn't mean any harm. I thought that it would be funny. I just didn't know what else to write. And this is just something that I heard somebody say. So in order to participate, this is what I wrote. I'm sorry. I didn't mean no harm by it. I was just trying to participate in the game. And it's something that I heard. Okay? But I'm getting that a reason why that she didn't do that is because this is very uncharted territory for her. So she doesn't know these women like that. And she doesn't know exactly how they would react to her in that situation. She didn't want to feel like she was snitching on Marlo and Sheree, and she didn't want to upset Candy at the same time. She didn't want to ostracize herself. She didn't want to end up isolating herself and making herself public enemy number one, especially being the fact that she is the new girl. Now, there is some residue from this particular situation that rolls over into the conflict with Drew and Sanya, but I will fill in those blanks with the video that is specifically for Drew and Sanya. I'm going to move on to the next layout. Okay, so this is how we lead up to the events that brought out the rumor from Sheree's mouth. So I asked the Divine Realm through the cards to show me what caused, what happened, what were the events that led up to the rumor coming out of Sheree's mouth and getting to Sanya. So what we have here are the Two of Cups and the Ace of Cups. So this is referring to a one-on-one meeting that was had prior to filming, and this is also referring to the particular group events, at least one or two that happened prior to filming. And there were drinks involved, there were festivities involved, and like I said, Sheree is a chatty patty when she gets some things into her system, allegedly. Shout out to Alexander Rogers. But regardless, there's a lot of gossiping that was going on prior to filming, because it seems like everybody except for Candy and Kenya, who do their regular planning when it comes to filming, but Marlo, Sheree, Sanya, Drew, all of them were gearing up for the new season because they knew and were constantly hearing about how much of a cast shakeup was going to happen, how much needed to be changed in order to keep the show interesting and keep the audience enthused and paying attention and engaging and everything. So a lot of meetups were happening, a lot of things were being said, and a lot of plots were being made. Okay? Unseemingly though, and what I mean by that is each individual having their own calculated intents. Not necessarily two people meeting up like, okay, we're going to do this and then that and then this and then that. Not particularly like that, but more so people functioning from an opportunistic and strategic mindset and putting batteries in each other's backs, putting bugs in each other's ears, unseemingly through casual conversation, and also when liquor and other substances and things of that nature get involved, and also emotions start bubbling to the forefront, things of that nature, it causes things to get very messy, very nasty, and tables start to turning. And so with that being said, a lot of allegiances and alliances and promises were made and formed prior to filming that end up being called into question by the time filming starts, and also throughout the duration of filming. So whereas we see certain people like Marlo, Sheree, Sanya, even Kenya, and maybe even sometimes Drew, and what I'm picking up on is throughout the remainder of the season, we're going to be seeing certain alliances and things of that nature being called into question even more. And whereas we as audience members are like, okay, why is that a big deal? Why are you making this an issue? Why are you know what I'm saying, going out of your way to try to fight with her over this little bitty thing? Like, for instance, Sheree in particular. We see her pointing out a lot of things about Candy, and we're like, okay, why are you making it a big deal? Why are you expecting this out of Candy? Da 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 da. And I'm not saying specifically that Candy and Sheree formed an alliance or anything. I'm not saying that for a fact because I didn't pull specifically on that, but I'm using it as an example because it's one thing that I know myself and certain other audience members have questioned as to why Sheree is making a big deal out of certain things as it concerns the Candy. So I'm using that as an example. But that's why there are certain things that we are like caught off guard about, but they are speaking in code to keep from breaking the fourth wall, and also to protect certain people that they formed a quote-unquote alliance with prior to filming, and they're trying not to reveal certain things. So they're trying to address certain things without revealing certain other things. And with that being said, there is something specific, and like I said before, it'll have to be, filled in when I do the video on when I do the video on Sonya and Drew specifically together on their relationship and everything, that blank will be filled in more. But the way Drew carries on throughout the remainder of episode 3 plays into what I just said. And whereas a lot of people are like, why is Sonya turning on Drew? What is Sonya mad about concerning Drew? I can't specifically say as of yet, but I can tell you what's come up so far until I do that reading and video on their relationship in particular. But the reason why Sonya gets thrown off by Drew going forth is because there is something that Drew said about Sheree and some of the other girls. Is coming to me Candy, but it's like Sheree, Marlo, and Candy in particular. There are certain things that Drew said about them that Sonya latched onto. So then when Drew starts to carry on a certain type of way with Sheree, it throws Sonya for a loop because it contradicts whatever it was that Drew said about Sheree in particular. I can't say, like I said, I'm going to have to pull specifically on that subject. But there is something that was discussed between Sonya and Drew prior to filming, and in the midst of Drew bringing Sonya into the fold, that Drew said about Sheree, or a certain tone or something. There's something that Drew said about Sheree. But then the way that Drew carries on when they start filming as it concerns Sheree, and also specifically at the tea party, it makes Sonya question what Drew said based off how Drew was acting and carrying on. So just keep that in mind. And I am going to move on to the next layout. So here I asked the Divine Realm to show me what was going on, what went down, what led up to, what was the scenario, the event, the scene of which the fellatio rumor came out. And there you see that Wheel of Fortune card again. That is Sheree. The Hierophant card is partially Sheree, but the Hierophant card is also the compilation of Kenya, Sheree, and Marlo. There's a particular event that was had to bring everybody together, to warm everybody up, to welcome Drew as a second seasoner, and to welcome in Sonya as the new girl. And what I got also from this layout and from the pulls is that Candy was not able to be there because she had some other job going on. But what this is giving me is a lot of intoxication, a lot of chatty patty going on. It's a good time. It's a good festive event. But Sheree in particular ends up becoming a main focus here, because what she says and does here, of course, as you know, the reason why we're here, it ends up becoming a major part of the show. Okay, now somewhat a major part. Okay, but so the drinks are flowing, the vibes are going, Sheree is in her feelings. Somebody brings up either Todd or Candy, something of the sort. And Sheree just starts running off at the mouth, popping off at the mouth. And I'm not gonna lie, okay? And I'm saying allegedly, for protective purposes and all of that. But this is exactly what it's giving me. Sheree feels very behind in life. Sheree feels like she's wasted a lot of time. And she looks up and she sees herself surrounded by very powerful women who are either the same age as her or younger than her, and she feels like they are doing better than her. And I hate to say it because I really don't like putting the jealous streak on everybody, but this is what you know, Sheree has shown, and it's also coming out through the divine messages. It's coming out through the energy. It's coming out through the cards consistently. I used different decks of cards, different types of the same deck, and Sheree shows up the same way with this Jekyll and Hyde type of thing going on, this hot and cold, light and dark imbalance type of thing. And there is a lot of jealousy, a lot of anger, a lot of suppressed emotion, and a lot of warped perspectives. And I say that to say that what's coming out in this layout right here is when whoever was mentioned, whether it was Candy, Todd, something that reminded her of them, it triggered her jealousy. Sheree is very jealous, not just of Candy and everything that she has on her own, but specifically of Candy and Todd. Their relationship, their marriage, what it represents, what they bring to each other. She is very jealous. And whenever, especially when she is intoxicated and the topic is brought up, she starts to go on a tangent and running off at the mouth and saying all types of crazy stuff. And some of it may have some truth to it, but a lot of it is just hearsay, and it's convenient for her to believe because of how she feels about herself and how she feels about Candy and how it triggers her and everything. And whatever was mentioned, she starts to go on a tangent. She starts to speak her speech and say what she says, and it involves Candy sucking dick and a locker room, a plethora of other things, but specifically Candy sucking dick in a locker room. And if I didn't say it already, that King of Wands is Todd. Not only is the King of Wands Todd, but the King of Wands is also representing everything that Candy and Todd have been able to do individually and also do as a unit. And like I said, the Hierophant is representing the compilation of Marlo, Sheree, and Kenya. And you see those two individuals beneath the Hierophant in that same card imagery. Those are Sanya and Drew. Okay? There's another layout that expounds on this layout. And it gets into each individual's tactics. So, Sheree and Marlo's tactic is to just go on these tangents and just say a bunch of shit and see what sticks. It's like an artist just throwing colors and throwing paint at a canvas and seeing what the picture comes out to be as a result. So Marlo and Sheree in particular have casual conversation, or what you think is casual conversation, and they just spit shit out. And like I said, when Sheree is intoxicated, a whole bunch of shit is bound to come out. And then they just see what happens as a result, who takes what and runs with it. And they were and do count on, in this particular situation, in this particular scenario, either Drew, Sanya, or both latching on to things that are said in the midst of this function, and in the midst of them ranting, and they're counting on them running with it and turning it into a situation that not only creates mess, creates uncomfortability for Candy and whoever else, you know, catches those strays, but also they have the ability to be puppet masters, and it plays into good scenes, which makes them more money. Remember me saying Marlo and Sheree in particular function from a monetary and materialistic masculine type of mindset with things, and that's what that ties into. They spit a bunch of shit out, count on it being bugs and batteries that are put into people's ears and backs, and then they watch the shit unfold. What do they call that? A match pumper, a person that lights a fire and then they come back with a water hose to put it out so that they look like a hero. That's the type of thing that they do, and that is their tactic also in general, but also specifically for this season, because like I said, there was something made clear to the cast as a whole prior to filming, that everybody is replaceable. So everybody, specifically and especially Marlo, Sheree, Sanya, and Drew, because Kenya and Candy more so feel more secure in general. They have things to fall back on outside of the show, so they're not that pressed to be trying to, you know what I'm saying, do the most for a spot on the show. But the other girls definitely are making sure they do everything that they need to do to secure their spot, not only for this season but also for seasons to come. Okay, so let's go ahead and move into the next layout, and definitely keep everything that I just said in mind, not only for future videos to come, but also for future episodes to come, because there, like I said, there's much more than what meets the eye, not only in this reading but also on the show. There are a lot of things being edited out, and there are also a lot of code speaking going on amongst the cast members, so that they don't break the fourth wall and so that they don't incriminate other people that they formed alliances with outside of filming. So let's get on into the expounding of this particular layout. Okay, so all of this is Kenya, basically. Just spit it out. All four of these cards represent Kenya. And this is specifically the tactic that she uses. And this is more effortless than it is intentional. Some of it is intentional, but much of it is effortless. The part that is intentional is more than likely, allegedly, what the cards, not allegedly what the cards are giving me, but allegedly this is what happened for protective purposes. But what the cards in the divine realm and my intuition is giving me is that the intentional part of Kenya's tactic is she brings everybody together, gets them herbed up with tea, and she may or may not spike the tea with some other substances, and this could be CBD, THC, and or liquor, or she would just also have liquor available or some type of edible gummies available for the ladies. Think about the tea party in particular that happened on the show. But she doesn't just do this on the show. This is a thing that she does also outside of the show when she has gatherings. And I'm also picking up on the fact that it is some type of tradition or ritual that Kenya has, where she has a pre-filming type of gathering where she brings all of the ladies together, because there's something that comes up, whereas Kenya learns in her pregnancy and the first couple of months with Brooklyn that she needed a village, and she started to realize that basically she could create more of a village for herself if she extended herself more. So she started to have more functions to bring people together. But this is also not only to bring people together, but this is also for Kenya to get to know people better and to kind of get to know herself better through other people. So let's talk about these cards real quick. We have the Ace of Swords, the Empress, the Magician, and the Five of Pentacles. All right, let's start with the Five of Pentacles there. That card has come out multiple times for Kenya. And it symbolizes the way that she feels like an outcast. It symbolizes her mommy issues. And in this case in particular, it symbolizes her recognizing how much she has in common with the other ladies. Specifically, the ladies that have been brought back into the fold and the new girls. So Marlo, Sheree, Drew, and Sonya being a new girl, that essentially makes them outcasts one way or another, right? And Marlo, Sheree, and kind of sort of Drew, they have their own individual histories and reputations that kind of make them outcasts, right? Or misunderstood, if you will. So Kenya peeped that in prior to filming for this season, she brought together a gathering for all the girls to come together and give each other a chance and get to know each other, bonds and things of that nature, see what they cook up, right? And like I said, that's where this magician card gets into, okay? Where Kenya is mixing some things up, such as tea and spirits, you know? But also, while the spiking of drinks and things of that nature, those things are intentional because there's something, and I guess this is something that kind of lives rent free in Kenya's mind. It's something she's had the experience of multiple times, and that is a drunk mouth don't tell no lies, okay? A drunk man don't tell no tales, however you know that saying to be. Kenya knows that saying well, and she adheres to it, okay? And that plays a role in her bringing people together to get drunk so that they end up telling on themselves and revealing themselves. Now, Kenya also has an Ace of Swords energy, which makes sense because she is an Aquarius. She's an air sign. But why doesn't she show up as the Queen of Swords? One, there's a lack of boundaries in Kenya's life. That's a conversation for another time. But also she shows up as the Ace of Swords because the way that she functions and naturally how her aura and her energy is, how her spirit is, she was gifted with a particular type of energy that effortlessly triggers people to unravel before her and around her. So essentially, she really doesn't have to do much to get information out of people because she has one of those energies where people naturally feel comfortable or feel free showing themselves or revealing themselves or expressing certain things to her and around her, not only in the form of confiding in her, but also when they feel threatened or intimidated by her. It just comes out. They can't help themselves but to try to attack her or pick at her, to try to get some type of reaction out of her, or to try to make her feel bad or look bad. But what ends up happening is that a lot of the time they end up showing themselves one way or another in the way that they try to get at her. And or, certain things just happen where that person true colors ends up showing because Kenya has a consistency about herself, whereas the people who try to make her look bad often contradict themselves, and it ends up showing one way or another. And that's where Kenya shows up as the Empress. How much she is an embodiment of empowerment and a motherly type energy. Even though it took her a minute to access it fully and properly and, in the nurturing and tender type ways, there are a lot of people that have naturally looked up to Kenya even before she was an adult, even before she had accolades to look up to. Kenya has just always had one of those spirits, one of those personalities that either intimidate people or inspire people. And that's where she gets into that Empress energy, or not even where so she gets into it, but that's where the Empress card comes in consistently for her. She consistently shows up as the Empress card. She also shows up as other cards, but her main card is the Empress card and the Nine of Pentacles. But she hasn't accessed the Queen of Swords energy yet. And that's where things start to get a little haywire. But like I said, that's for her particular video that I'm going to do on her specifically. So just hold that thought. But all of this is said to say, the particular gathering and or gatherings that Kenya had prior to filming also opened her eyes to a lot of things about everybody on the cast. And that also plays even more into how Kenya is moving this season and why she's moving so differently from other seasons, and also why we see her speaking up more as it concerns certain things that are being done and certain things that are being said, because she witnessed the majority of the alliances that were formed prior to, things that were said, and all of that shit. And it seems like also when everybody else is intoxicated and in the depths of all of the mess and chaos and just, you know, circus like activity that's going on, Kenya is sober. Kenya is either sober or she's much more functioning and much more in control of herself than everybody else in the room. So she has a clear memory and a clear perspective on everything that went on, everything that goes on, and everything that was said. So really keep that in mind, and how we see Kenya moving already in the first 7 episodes, and also going forth throughout the remainder of the season, because like I said, it plays into everything that she witnessed and heard prior to the season forming. And it's giving me, honestly, and I will have to confirm this in some other videos, but it's giving me that Kenya is really the only one that's keeping her word to everybody. And it's because she is more than likely the only one that didn't go to one person saying one thing and to another person saying something different. Kenya has been consistent and shown the same face to everybody. She's been genuinely authentic and just taking notes and understanding the assignment and doing everything that she needs to do. Now, Candy, on the other hand, her disadvantage is that she has a ton of things, projects, and jobs on her plate. So her discrepancies and contradictions that come up literally have to be charged to her head and not her mind. That's what's coming to me now, just as a channeled message. Not as something I pulled, but it's channeling through me right now as I speak and wrap up this part of the video. There are some contradictions that come up about Candy, and it's going to be some other questionable things that come out about Candy throughout the season. And it's a matter of where everybody, it's best that we, unless you just want to hate her. But the truth of the matter is, it's a matter where we have to charge it to Candy's head and not her heart, because she has a lot of things on her plate and a lot of projects. And not just that, but it's a spiritual cycle that Candy is in particularly personally, spiritually, and it concerns her family also that she's going through, whereas she has not been able to keep track of everything. So there may be moments where she said one thing in one moment and it was something slightly different in the next moment, or she just didn't remember what she said that day and she ended up saying something different another, or you know, things get out of whack. And it's literally just because she lacks organization. She's going from one thing to the next. She's being tugged in a whole lot of different directions. So it's not a matter of her intentionally being malicious or intentionally trying to be messy or intentionally trying to be vindictive or betray anybody. It's just a whole lot on her plate, and she literally has not had the time nor the mental or emotional capacity to put thought into shit or even remember or hear or witness a lot of the shit that has been going on. So throughout the season, that's also what makes it kind of easy for certain people to jab at her and get at her, throw certain darts at her, or try to make her look bad. And why editing also may make her look a certain way or try to make her look a certain way, because it's simply a lot of things that she wasn't present for. There's a lot of things that she wasn't present for, and it's a lot of things that she just didn't have the capacity to remember, didn't have the capacity to pick up on in the moment, because it's just a whole lot of shit on her plate, and she's been trying to commit to everything and everybody. Well, darling, I have milked this cow dry, so I hope y'all satisfied. And if you got any questions, comments, concerns, interpretations, or elaborations, go ahead and drop them down there in the comments. And be clear and be aware, the next esoteric and energetic analysis that I will be doing will be for Miss Candy Burris Tucker. So make sure that you're liking, commenting, and subscribing so that I'm good in the algorithm and that you good on the notifications, okay? And furthermore, and most importantly, I bid you all ever embrace and intensify light, love, healing, and liberation. Emphasis on liberation. Mwah.